If you've been managing to be living under a rock for the past weekend, you'll know that Pokémon Scarlet and Violet have come out. It's the newest generation of Pokémon, Generation 9. There's usually a big ol' hype up with releases of a new generation. This one is kind of strange. It is our first completely open world Pokemon game. I know Arceus was kind of a mix of open world, kind of like sectional open worlds, but this one is completely open world. You can go wherever you want. And over the past weekend, I've really been making a point to be playing lots of Pokemon. Not only was I really excited for this new generation, but I also wanted to bring some good quality videos to you guys. And I thought, the weekend has passed, hype has kind of died down, I want to give my first impressions of the game, what I've been liking and what I've been disliking, what I found fun and unfound, and, you know, rough around the edges. The good, the bad, and the ugly. So let's start with the good. I always like to start on a good note. I do want to state beforehand, this is my 100% personal opinion. My opinion, my views, my experiences with these games will be almost completely different than you guys or other people on the internet, so take that. This is just my experience. You could experience what I experienced or something completely different. This is just me. I also want to state that I focus on the good. I do believe that Game Freak is a company that cares about making these games as to the best of quality they can, and they just can't at the moment. We'll get to the can't later, but let's start with the good. What I find really amazing about these games. The open world. This is the big whole tagline, the big MacGuffin of this game is the open world. This open world is very, very good. Now, I've played a good amount of open world games both on the Nintendo Switch and on other consoles, and I can say that this game matches up almost perfectly with something like Breath of the Wild or Skyrim. The amount of places you can visit, the size of the map, I was very shocked the first time I opened the map and actually started to explore, like, on my own. I was very shocked with the general size of it and the different, varieties of areas you can go. I think they did a very good job with the map itself. Now, I've only been to a couple areas, but what I've seen from other gameplay is that there are, snowy tundras and deserts, and so far the areas I've explored have been very good. Very akin to the first kind of wild areas from Pokemon Sword and Shield, but this one kind of builds upon that formula. Something that does play a lot into the open world aspect is the open story. Now, this game takes on 3 different storylines, in air quotes, where the first one is the traditional Pokemon storyline. You go through, battle all the gym badges, and take on the Pokemon League to become champion of the region. Fairly standard stuff, hasn't changed over the past 25 years. The second story is actually a really neat new story, where there are these, spoilers ahead, but there's these, giant Pokemon that are guarding special herbs, and they are upgrades for your legendary bike. We'll get into that later. But I found that very interesting, as those battles kind of take form as big raids. Third storyline is Star Road, I believe it's called, and it's where you take on Team Star, who are much like Team Rocket or Team Magma from Red and Blue and Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, respectively. And that is also fairly standard, something that hasn't changed, but you explore their, camps. Very fun. I have been very impressed with the detail of the Pokemon and the character models. You can tell that they definitely took some time to add textures and layers and details to these characters. You can see all the wrinkles on pants and the little feathers and flakes on the Pokemon themselves, which weren't present in other games. They've always just been kind of smooth 3D models. They have had some texturing in the past, but now it's kind of starting to be more implemented in these games. They also have had some new animations, which I have appreciated. The old ones were getting kind of stale, and I do like the new animations they've added. The legendary Pokemon, so I've personally been playing Violet And the legendary in Violet is Viridian. And I think the legendaries are very interesting as you ride them as bikes. Now, they are kind of in an upgrade stage, and this plays a bit into the big raids, where these legendaries can get upgraded every time you beat them, and they get new upgrades. So I personally have beat one of the giant beasts, and I have gained the ability to drive in the water. And that opens up a whole new element of exploration in this open world, and I think that that's great, as not only does it encourage you to definitely play a part in other storylines along with the one you're focusing on, but it also allows for like more creative ways to get places. Wild Pokemon, so this game does take a lot from Legends Arceus, and Pokemon are now in the wild, pop up right in the wild. They're just there. You can see them. Pokemon wander around much like in Legends Arceus, and I think that that's very, very cool, as it does add a lot more flavor and character to the open world. It also plays into the battles, which do 100% take place in this open world. If you battle a wild Pokemon or a trainer, you are fighting in this open world. If I am in the middle of a rock cliff and I bump into a Pokemon, I can battle it right there. And it's really interesting to have, it's really natural to have battling in this open world, as it makes everything feel more flowed and connected. But the menus, I love the direction that the Pokédex has taken the form of these little journal books you add to a bookshelf. That's adorable. I love it. It makes me want to add more of these books to my bookshelf to make it fill in more. I definitely think that's cool. I love how when you get one, it opens up the number slots for the ones next to, but after and before, which I think is really neat, as it lets you see, oh hey, what's this one? Maybe it's an evolution or pre-evolution, and it also rewards you for adding to your decks, as you will get little rewards for catching 5, 10, 15, 20. You'll get little rewards for catching Pokemon and adding them to your decks, which I think is really fantastic, as it does incentivize completing your Pokédex. And my last thing for the good that I really like is the Terra battle raids. Now, Terra is a really interesting little MacGuffin for this game, because it's much like Gigantamaxing or Mega Evolutions from previous games, where Pokemon becomes very crystallized and gets a new typing depending on which one. So there are some where there's a Pikachu, Event Pikachu going around right now he is electric type, but when you terraform him, he is flying type, and that gives him a whole bunch of different strengths, advantages, and weaknesses, and I think that does really shake up gameplay. And the Terra raid battles, which are most like Gigantamax raids from Sword and Shield, Crystallized Caves are a very cool area to battle them. And I think it's just a load of fun. You can team up with friends, you can team up with CPUs if you don't like to go online. And I think that that's just really fun. So I want to talk about the ugly now, save the worst for last, because I don't believe harping on these games is what is needed. The ugly is, this game is indeed rough around the edges. I don't think rough fully exemplifies what's going on with this game, but I do think that there are some things holding it back from Breath of the Wild standards. We're using Breath of the Wild as a scale of comparison. I don't know why. I think that's just the default. But there is no voice acting, which is a shame, because I believe for this unique cast of, characters, not all the characters have to be voiced. Like in Breath of the Wild, only the main characters can be voiced. The director or your rival, or some of the gym leaders, they can be voiced. I don't think every NPC needs to be voiced, but I do think voice acting would add a lot. When these games first came out, I wasn't as bothered with it, but then I started playing some more games with voice acting, so I do believe that having voice acting in Pokemon would not only enhance the experience, but I think it would be fun to see the different voices they can give these characters. Another big ugly side is the controls are definitely not as sharp as Legends Arceus. Catching Pokemon is still very archaic, as you have to go into battle with them, weaken them, and then catch them. It was like that in Arceus, there was that option, but that wasn't the primary way to do it. In Arceus, you could throw Pokeballs to your heart's content without needing to go into battle, and I thought that was a very fun gameplay advantage that that game had, as you don't have to sit through frames and frames of encounters in predetermined cutscenes and stuff to actually get a Pokemon. It was very easy, and sometimes they'd break free and start running at you, and I think that was fun. It definitely added to the whole catching experience, as well as the character. The character does not, your protagonist does not play like the Arceus character, mainly the lack of dodge roll, which I do understand dodge roll was a huge part of Arceus' gameplay and mechanics and story, but I do think it would be fun to have dodge rolling back, as just running isn't as fun enough as dodge rolling was. And then, this is just a small issue that I've just noticed, is characters do still move like traditional meme game NPCs. If you're looking at video games today, the fluid animations, even something like Breath of the Wild, which is running on the same system as these games, has way more fluid character animations than Pokemon does. It still feels very, very janky, very 3DS 3D models, and I do believe that they can improve on that. Alright, I really don't want to focus on this too much, but these are some big ones. These are the bad. I don't have a lot bad to say about this game, because I do believe it flourishes in unique areas that others don't necessarily. But frame rate is horrible in this game. This game chugs at such a low frame rate. Once you pop into the open world, it is just, you maybe get 30 seconds of nice, clean 30 frames, and then it chugs, it slows down. Entering and exiting battles, there's always a stutter. Getting on your legendary to go riding slows down the game a few bit, not to a crawl, but it does damper the frame rate riding on the legendary, and I think that this is really terrible, as if you can, yes, we're comparing to Breath of the Wild again. If you look at something like Breath of the Wild, which is indeed running on the same hardware as these games, that game features little to no slowdown. Maybe there are some areas where the game has to process the area, but for the most part, Breath of the Wild runs extremely smooth. And I think it's a real shame, because Pokemon definitely has the power and the money and the time to back these kind of things. I do believe they could borrow some insight from Nintendo to get these like frame rates going, because we've seen the Nintendo Switch run some more demanding games like Doom Eternal or Monster Hunter Rise, where these games are either next-gen ports or built specifically for the system, and they run almost perfectly. I say almost because the Switch is not a perfect system. And I think that really dampers the experience, especially gameplay, as after a while it can get pretty tiring having monuments of slowdown and stutters and crap like that that shouldn't really be in there in the first place, and I think it's something that they need to fix either this week or before Christmas. Another thing, certain textures, like the world map pops in and out, and warps, and all the crazy PS1 stuff with these textures are happening with these 2022 modern games. I think this is something that Pokemon really needs to get under their belt and fix immediately. Screw box support. That can come later. That can come down the line. We'll wait for box support. They need to get on fixing these games' frame rate and graphical issues. Anyway, that's all I have for you today. These were just my first impressions. Obviously, you'll have to wait for a review of these games when I finish them and hear my full thoughts and, improvements by the time that comes. I hope you all enjoyed. I hope you guys are finding some enjoyment in these games. I do believe that they are diamond diamonds in the rough, and that they do have a lot to add to the series, and are generally good games, just bogged down by some very bad circumstances and decisions from a gameplay standpoint. If it had some more time, I feel like it could be utterly amazing. We'll have to see in the future. If you guys enjoyed, be sure to click the subscribe button. A subscribe helps. We're almost at 200. It would be fantastic to reach the 200 mark. Hit the like button, because apparently YouTube likes now. So hit the like button. But also turn on notifications, as I try to keep a consistent upload schedule. It doesn't always work out, but if you want to stay up to date with me, click that notifications. For now, I've been King from Kingdom Studios. Hope you all have a legendary day.